Hey everybody, it's Mike Shea from slyflourish.com and twitter.com/slyflourish, as Step Back History reminded me as my intro. And I am here with Enrique Bertran, the NewbieDM, and we're going to talk about D&D. In particular, I think we're going to talk about the finale of Tomb of Annihilation, now that both you and I have gone through this ordeal together. Is that right? Do we want to talk about that?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, hi, Mike. Thanks for hosting this chat, and hi to all your viewers and your subscribers. I think every time you and I get together to talk D&D, we always end up talking about a topic, and then suddenly we divert and
that's fine.
Go off on some tangent, which I'm sure will happen tonight as well. So yeah, let's say we're going to talk about Tomb of Annihilation.
And we'll talk about other stuff too. Yeah, so one thing is we're probably going to spoil the hell out of Tomb of Annihilation. So if you are playing in it, or you don't want to be spoiled about what the end of Tomb of Annihilation is like, then you probably want to not listen to this, right? So, Enrique, when did you finish your Tomb of Annihilation campaign?
Oh wow, you're starting with the hard questions already.
It was like what? It was like a week ago. Like it can't be that. How hard is that question?
No, it wasn't a week ago. It was a while ago already.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So a couple months, would you say?
Couple months. Yeah.
All right. And how did it go?
It didn't go well.
Really? Okay.
No. I think by the time we got to the end of Tomb of Annihilation, my players and I were all like, we were completely over the mega dungeon. Mm-hmm. We were completely over Acerak and his stupid traps, and we were completely over. It was a very long campaign. We felt it was very long, mm-hmm. and we felt that it dragged in places.
Yeah. My experience was similar. Like I think we were ready to be done by the time they hit the gear. Both my groups were very forgiving about the adventure overall, and but I think by the time they hit the gears of hate, and then when they get to the hag rooms in particular, they're just like, oh my god, 5 more? Like we just got like all those dumb keys, and now we have to do like 5 more things to get the key holes. Yeah, it's a lot of dungeon. I don't know if you did this, but I completely skipped the whole last part. Like once you go through the door, after you're done with the Atropol and after you're done dealing with whatever Acerak's nonsense is, then there's this whole other room with all of these other things going on. And in both groups, I just skipped it. I just had them like once they leave, they're out. I
skipped it because if I remember correctly, there was something in that room that was very... what was it? There's something that unless you found something it was very specific about how to solve that puzzle.
Black pearl that you got from
the pearl, right?
One of the hags.
So my players, I don't think ever got the pearl, and I was like, well, how are they going to figure this out?
Right, yeah. And
I said, you know what? I'm just skipping over this crap. I'm not even going to do it. It's not worth it.
I just felt right, like no more traps, right? Like no more riddles. You know, let's just let's just move forward. And once they've dealt with it,
I mean, there's a lot of fun in the adventure. There's a lot of fun in the dungeon. Yeah. There's also a lot of moments where you're like, oh, come on, let's just skip over this. Like, there's one room in particular, and I don't remember what the trap was, but one of my players ended up in Victorian London. His dwarf got teleported to Victorian London.
Did he like jump in that weird thing and it zipped off to...
Yeah, I think that's what it was. It was some weird thing that the book basically says your character could end up anywhere in the multiverse or something like that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I had him end up in London somewhere.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
They didn't appreciate that, or they...
he laughed it off.
Yeah. I had one guy that got in and it jumped into another plane, and I had him show up on one of the fun little things that I added to it is that, like, a Saura has eaten entire other planets with his Death Trap dungeons. So there's like other worlds out there that are just desert. And in one of them, like I stole the cover of an Iron Maiden album, and it was like Power Slave was the name of the album. And the idea was like there's all of these monuments to Saura on a planet where everyone is dead. And he was like the last guy they worshipped, and he killed every one of them and ate every piece of vegetation off the planet. And so I had him show up at one of those planets and see like, wow, this is what the world will be like if a Saura just absorbs it, And
did the Silver Surfer show up?
Yeah, I saw that. Saura is Galactus, kind of, yeah, because it's like he's just this, super powerful lich, and he doesn't care. He doesn't, you know, like the funny bit is he didn't pay attention to their worship. He just ate them. You know, his was, I want crazy magic and artifacts, and I will you know, eat planets to get it. So,
how did you feel about the map at the end of the Atropile and the?
I modified it slightly, and I got, only because I wanted to use Dwarven Forge, and I didn't feel like making a triangular room in Dwarven Forge. So I had it be an open plain of lava with 3 or 4 platforms in it, and that it was essentially like a demi-plane that was filled with lava in all directions. So there were no walls or ceilings to climb on. You had to, like, the only way to get from platform to platform was to leap or use the, you know, climb on the adamantine poles. But again, that was just so I could build it easily in Dwarven Forge. I had a lava map, an open lava map, and then I had these floating Dwarven Forge platforms. The 2 phylactery chambers. Yeah. And then the main entry hall was this long hall. And then I had the platform that had the portal on it. And then in the center was the Soulmonger. And that worked pretty well for both groups.
Yeah, I saw your pictures.
It looked cool, and people dug it, and there was enough for people to get around, but they couldn't spider climb on the walls the whole time. How did you do it?
No, I tried to go with the map as done in the book.
Yeah.
And I was looking at it, and there were I found it a little confusing in some parts. Like, I didn't understand the walls on the side, if you could walk on them or if you could climb them,
right? Or how big the ceiling is,
or how big everything was. And I don't know.
I just pulled some BS and said there are no walls or ceiling. Like, you're screwed.
That's good BS.
It is, but it's like, how does that work? Like, they're like looking to the left and right. They're like, wait, it goes infinitely in either direction, and I'm like, yes.
The answer is yes.
The answer is yes. There's
as far as
no ceiling, right? There's a burning, swirling sky of clouds above you, and to the left and right is nothing but an open plain of lava and these 4 platforms, right? Like, and I also the other thing I did, just so both groups wouldn't, you know, like, I did not want to have a stairway fight. So I was like, as soon as you walk through, you turn around and there's a wall behind you. Like, there's no door out. You know, there's no stairwell for you to lurk in, because, like, nothing chaps my ass more than players who sort of, like, walk partway into a room and then hang at the door frame throwing Eldritch Blast the whole time because they don't actually want to step into a room. You know, so I kind of, like, shoved them all in and then closed the door behind them. Whoops, I just banged my mic.
So I think talking about and here we go into tangents, right? I think talking about the last fight is good and all, but I do have a lot of thoughts about that adventure that extend beyond the last fight, and I think they're worth.
Sure,
you and I have spoken about it before.
Yeah, I've got like 4, but we can hit.
But I think they're worth speaking about, and I think the first one is and I'm gonna sound like a broken record. I know I mentioned it before on Twitter and stuff like that, but I think the first one is the ticking time bomb.
Yeah, the urgency of the death curse.
The urgency of the death curse versus the promise of Portnai and Zaru, and all the cool things you could do there, and all the cool side quests, and all the cool NPCs, and the dinosaurs, and this and that. But we got to go because we got a ticking time clock.
Yeah, right. Like, people are dying. Souls are getting eaten right now. Yeah.
Like, there's no time to be riding dinosaurs, kids. We got to go save the world. And I found that so jarring. And then combined with when you go into the jungle and the hex crawl, which everything slows to literally a crawl. Like, it's basically
right.
All right.
Right.
Now we're in this jungle and we better figure out where we're going, and we got to be counting hexes and sleeping out in the rain,
checking your rations and seeing if you got throat leeches.
I mean, what is going on here? Like, if you don't if these players aren't lucky enough to go to the 3 or 4 people who can tell them exactly where the lost city is, it's going to be about 2 months before they get to Omu.
Oh yeah.
And enter the dungeon and maybe save a few souls.
Right.
And I found the entire...
somebody in chat, Denag in chat said, if you go to this town, hey, if you go to this town 4 days away, I'll give you this necklace that I left there.
So I think the book was trying to be a few things all at once, and it hurt the adventure in the process, right? So it was trying to be a mega dungeon,
right?
It was trying to be a hex crawl, like a Isle of Dread type scenario,
right?
And even if you flip the map vertically, it kind of looks like the Isle of Dread,
right?
Yep. Like almost a perfect copy.
Yeah.
So it was trying to be a hex crawl like Isle of Dread. It was trying to be a mega dungeon, and it was trying to give you a new setting in Port Nyanzaru. So it's three different things in one. And the tonal shift of the adventure as you move from part to part to part is really like jarring.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really where I
I had basically 4 issues, and to me 3 of them were, if you know about them before you ran it, or even if you're kind of in it a little bit already, I think 3 of them are pretty easy to fix as a DM. So like the urgency of the Death Curse is definitely a problem, but it's an easy one to fix if you know it ahead of time. You just slow it down. You just turn the dial or make it abstract. You don't give this like 1 hit point a day thing. You know, you just say that it's out there. And I can't remember, somebody, I think it might have been Navy DM, who had a good idea, not to be confused with NewbieDM, of don't even bring up the Death Curse till they're already in the adventure, and then say like, you know, just have them kind of go and explore for a while, and then the Death Curse becomes a thing that draws them in later, you know. But the idea I like is sort of you can turn the dial on it, that like, you know, through visions and portents and other things that you give to whoever your you know, cleric, you know, religious based characters are, they can get a sense of like, well, it's not, you know, everyone's curious about it at first. It's not because it's like, why send level 1s off to do with this thing that's going to kill everybody? You know, you'd get like, if all the souls of everybody in the planet are getting eaten, you probably don't want to send 5 level 1 characters to go deal with it. You probably want to go find Drizzt. You know, get Drizzt and Elminster and Wolfgar and have them go solve this problem. So, so I think that's not too difficult. Like in both my games, I turned the dial on that, and they had lots of fun in Port Nyanzaru, and they, you know, one group explored the hell out of half the place, you know, so that worked out pretty well. The other issue I had is that the NPCs can lead the characters astray, and I know you mentioned in your game that artist Simber completely derailed your campaign, right? They're like, oh, we'll just let him tank for us. You know, so being careful about which NPCs you bring in and then making sure they have a way out, you know, is another one. But again, for me, like I kind of read that up front. I was like, okay, I'm just not going to bring those guys in, you know, and then I knew there were certain NPCs that can actually lead the characters the wrong way, you know, and then you mix that with the urgency of the Death Curse and you're just screwing people. So I was like, okay, we're just going to only have like 3 possible NPCs and they'll all generally lead you that way. They might have some interesting little side quests and stuff. What was my third? There was a third issue I had.
Wasn't it the shift once you get into the
so that dungeon? I thought that was my 4th problem. I thought I had a 3rd problem, but the total shift going from exploration.
Was it finding Omu?
No, that wasn't really a problem. Like I felt like I had 5 or 6 different ways they could find Omu. Like they even say it in the adventure. Like there's like 4 or 5 characters that all know about Omu, and as long as they run into one of those, you know, you're okay. But I you know, I should read my own article because I wrote about it.
It'd be a good time to plug that Teo's Alpha Stream wrote.
Yeah, right.
Fix to the Death Curse.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
He's in the chat.
Oh, is he? Oh, there he is. Dude, best campaign he's run. I can't properly state how much fun it's been. Yeah, I actually agree with it. I don't know if it's the best I ran, but I really liked it. Although I have to say, I
had fun with it. I don't want to say I didn't have fun with it. I had a lot of fun with it, but there were moments where I was ready to leave the dungeon.
Right. Yeah, I guess maybe that's my 4th. Is it overplays the dungeon the dungeon too much. So yeah, my 3rd problem was the deadly shift, which to me was a harder thing to deal with, and that's the idea that you have these characters that you know and love that 11 sessions through, or 11 levels, or 9 levels ish. They get to Omu, they have all this backstory and all this stuff, and then they walk in and like the first room is killer. You know, like the first room they're falling in pits and getting killed, and then like on the first floor, you know, you can get disintegrated, right? And these characters are just gone after all that time. And part of it is like, well, that's kind of the cool, gritty realism. But you're also like, I don't know. I kind of, you know, I kind of want to have those character arcs. And I felt bad. We had one player who lost 2 characters.
Wow.
You know, she had 2 characters get disintegrated. You know, one got disintegrated by Belcor's the Beholder, and the other one got disintegrated by the Black Box. So she had all these backgrounds for both of these characters. And I ended up kind of bringing both the characters back in because there's sort of opportunity. So what was kind of fun is one character that she had that got disintegrated by Belcor's, the Sohn sisters put her into a little doll. And so the characters found her again with her soul inside of a little doll. And the whole last fight, she was in the pocket of another character doing 11th or 10th level druid stuff, you know, and so that was kind of a fun way to handle it.
How did you handle the Yuan Ti?
That worked pretty well. Both games did it differently, but both worked pretty well. I liked how and I think it's a great model for how to write something like this. That the Fane of the Night Serpent is a nice like sandboxy place where not only is it this, you know, you could kick in the front door and start killing snake people, but many of them had these different factions. So there was like Fenthaza had her thing going on that was different than Ras Nisi, who had his thing going on. And then Ras Nisi has a concubine who's in love with his biggest bodyguard. So there was all these like little NPC traits that if you can expose those to the characters and to the players can exploit them. And in both groups that ended up happening. Like they could kind of work Fenthaza against Ras Nisi. And in one group, that became like Fenthaza lived until the very last scene of the game, which was like the 1 year ahead montage, at which point she was killed, you know. But in both groups, it worked well. They had opportunities to sneak in from multiple angles. You know, like both groups did not go through the front door. They went in through other alternative paths. One really smart, this is one of those, like, I think I'm growing up as a DM, that one group polymorphed themselves into a snake and snuck in the front door and explored the whole place as a tiny little snake, and then came back out and told the whole party about it. So they saw the whole map and they knew where everybody was, you know. And I'm like, as a old DM, like from before, I'd have figured out some way to screw him out of that. Like, I'm not letting you explore the whole place, but it says like, well, let's see how this goes. And they figured it out, and they're like, okay, well, there's a back door, you know, and we can go in through the back door. And by the way, there's these people hanging out here. So it was, you know, both my groups, it worked well. And it wasn't just a, you know, punch all the snake people in the face kind of session, which I think it can be if you know,
and which is what it happened.
Is that what happened in your group?
Yeah, it was kind of like let's
just fight a bunch of snake people.
Let's kill everything with a tail.
Yeah, right. Which, you know, I guess if that's what the group is into, then that can work just fine, right? Like, I don't know, I didn't run it that way, but was it just a slog at that point? Because it's like 50 snake people.
But you know who I used as a bigger enemy in the adventure? The Red Wizards.
Yeah, okay. So they became an ally in both.
Yeah, I kind of brought the Red Wizards to the forefront of the whole thing because I just find the Red Wizards interesting.
Yeah, they're fun. Yeah, and I brought Valindra. So I had Valindra a lot more prominent in both games. She was actually at the Red Wizard camp, and she was kind of lurking around Omu when the characters are lurking around Omu. And I had this like fun thing where they know that Omu is a dangerous place and that and here's this like woman in this nice dress and these tiny little slippers, and she's just walking through Omu by herself. And everyone's like, wow, she must be badass if, you know, she could just wear her tiny little slippers and walk through this place and not worry about anything. So the only problem with that is like, it's another character they can't defeat. You know, how many villains do you want to throw in front of them where don't fight her because you're screwed. But in one group, she was killed. She was killed by the Nalfishni, and that was stuck inside the obelisk.
When I first read the adventure that she came up, I was like, man, I know her from somewhere. Mm-hmm. And I remember that she came out she's from the Neverwinter 4E.
She's in the, right. And she's also in the Neverwinter MMO. And she's a character in one of the Drizzt books, but they're all different in every version of those. Like the Drizzt book, she's insane. And she's just, you know, a lunatic. And then in the Neverwinter one, she's like your very stereotypical villain. And then so I just played her as a smart lich that works for Zastam, you know, one of Zastam's agents.
So my game ends and the players are I didn't have anywhere else to go after they finished the dungeon, so I said, let's put this on hold,
right,
and let's play Waterdeep since it's coming out. I got the Waterdeep stuff and we're running through that. I'm definitely not going to run Mad Mage, Dungeon of Mad Mage, because I just don't feel like doing another dungeon.
Yeah, who wants to do another 25 dungeon levels?
It's just too much.
Yeah, it was a weird time to put that out. I think it's an interesting book, and I really haven't dug into it enough to have an opinion on it. And I've read a bunch of mixed reviews, but Sam Dillon likes it, and Sam Dillon is a harsh reviewer. Yeah. So that put it way up in my book.
I mean, there's some good. It's good,
but yeah, just the idea of
fun. Yeah, it's got a bunch of fun modular dungeon levels there that you could pull and use somewhere else.
Yeah,
for example. But I just don't feel like.
What about Saltmarsh? Are you going to run Saltmarsh?
I'd like to. Yeah.
Did you buy the boat? Do you have the boat?
So I own no, I did not buy the D&D boat. I just, it's too expensive for me. But
I know Alpha Stream bought the boat. I saw his pictures.
Yeah, I know he did. But I found, I'll put it up somewhere, maybe on Twitter or something. There's a company on Amazon that sells these, I guess they're cardboard boats, maybe?
Yeah, I think I saw you link to it, yeah.
Yeah, and that looks kind of cool. I started printing, actually, hold on. I have so I found the actual boat.
Oh, that's right. I saw you. Yeah, I saw your pictures of printing
I found the
boat.
actual boat. It's called the Ghost, by the way. Spoiler, the boat in Saltmarsh is called Ghost. And I actually started 3D printing it.
There you go.
You could see you could actually see the front of the boat here.
Yeah.
But my 3D printer ran out of filament.
Yeah, it's a lot of plastic you're holding.
Halfway through the print.
Does that mean you have to print it again?
Of just this part, it ran out, so I got to start over again. So now I'm like, should I just buy the stupid cardboard boat?
So I did slightly differently, which was I made a choice not to buy the big boat, and then ordered like every piezo flip mat of every boat that they have, and they have a bunch. So they have everything from a tiny little raft all the way up to like these huge 3-mast 4-level ships. And I bought those, and then I decided to go ahead and get the Beetle and Grimm box too, which also has maps for all the boats. So now I'm loaded in boat maps, and sliding those underneath a acrylic sheet in my home game works really well. Like it's just a great surface.
Yeah, a few months ago I bought it's called laser cut. It's like a laser cut wood type thing that it comes in pieces and you build it. I have a boat. It's made for minis. It just doesn't match the type of boat.
Yeah.
From the adventure, but
yeah, I'm kind of a sucker because I bought all those boats for piezo, which do not match the boat, and now I'm going to get a bunch of maps that do. So I don't think I'm going to end up using many of those piezo boats. But
so
whatever. They were cheap.
Did the box already release? Like you have the maps already?
No, they're coming out it's coming out a couple weeks after the main adventure comes out. So when the hardback book comes out, the Beetle and Grimm box will be coming out shortly thereafter.
That's at the end of May. Okay.
Yeah, end of May. And my thought is like I'm going to be running it for 2 separate groups. So for me, the investment of the box, like I think I might have bought the Dragon Heist one if I had, although it's a pretty short adventure for the amount of money. But if I had been running it for multiple groups, it might have been worth picking all that stuff up. But I'm glad the Beetle and Grimm box isn't quite as expensive, and it seems longer.
Do you want to get into Dragon Heist?
Well, I have another question about Tomb of Annihilation because I think that final battle in particular is so is I think worth a conversation on its own.
Okay.
So I ran, and I've now run it for 2 groups and have thoughts. And I know you ran it for 1, and I'd like to hear your thoughts too. So there's 2 parts to the fight, right? One is the Atropal and the Soulmonger, right? And then part 2 is the Serac showing up. And part 1 for both groups ran really well, and I modified some stuff slightly to make it a little bit more interesting and threatening, and it worked well. And one thing I did is that every time the Soulmonger is attacked, it attacks back with a tentacle, right? Do you remember this? And the tentacle can either hit somebody for like 26 damage or grab them. And theoretically, it could grab and then throw someone right in the lava, I think. I think I saw some posts about the fact that it probably didn't even need to take a turn in order to grab someone and throw them in the lava. But to me, it was far more interesting if it would grab somebody and hold them over lava. And then you'd have a round to figure out how you're going to get your friend out of lava, either the dimension door. And both groups always had ways to get out of that when they were in it, but they had to spend time and energy thinking about it. So it was an interesting tactical, bit of tactical choice of like, if I get attacked by a tentacle and it hits me, and then I had it also do damage. So it would hit a guy for damage and then drag them out over the lava. And the next round, if they were still there, at the end of their turn, it would drop them into the lava. And that way there was like this nice long period of time of suspense and stress, but also opportunities for other characters to like grab them or try to make sure they didn't land in the lava. Neither group had a character land in the lava, but both groups always had to worry about it. And I think that made that battle a lot more dynamic. Like it meant that the battle sort of scaled as the characters were doing damage. So if they decided we're going to hammer the hell out of the Soulmonger, that's fine, but you're going to get hit by a ton of tentacles. And that worked.
How many characters
6 in the one last night, and I think 5 in the one before that.
And do all of them have an ability to get out of the lava?
No, they don't, but enough of them did to be able to get other people out too. So they could do a lot of like, I'm going to run out there, jump, grab the guy and dimension door out. You know, they had options to kind of pull more than one person out.
Because you don't have walls in your lava. Your lava goes on forever.
Yeah, but they would just fall straight down and then they could probably climb back up. You know, like if they had fallen in there, they'd take a ton of damage. They'd take 55 damage and then have to be fished out. But there'd still be an opportunity for that, you know? So it was something they had to worry about, but it didn't end up causing them, you know, it didn't make it particularly deadly.
Nobody fell in the lava in my game either.
Yeah. Did you have the tentacles act the way they do in the book, that they can either grab or they can punch?
I did. And then for the minis, I used the tentacles from the Kraken.
Yeah, sure. Minis. Yeah, I've collected a bunch of tentacle minis over the years, and I used a set that's got a little hook so I can stick a mini in it, and then have like the tentacle hanging over the lava with the mini stuck in it, and that was neat. I only had the one thing I forgot about the Atropol in my first game and remembered in the second was the aura that it's got that prevents healing and does damage. And I would have it regularly float by a pile of characters and they all start taking necrotic damage and they can't heal. And that meant they had to like run around and jump over to other platforms and sort of deal with that, right? And that was also tactically fun. But I only had it just continually firing off cold rays all the time. And I think I increased the damage of the cold rays. I think the cold ray damage was low and I think I boosted it. So it was doing like 8d6 per cold ray as a legendary action. So it's firing off 3 cold rays a turn, and I just had it randomly selecting targets, right? So it was constantly throwing these rays out. And that was a bunch of damage. Like it was averaging 28 damage, you know, as per shot. And then I had it use, on its turn, it used its soul-sucking breath. Mm-hmm. But the bard in our group had the Circle of Power ability, which means that on a magical effect, you get advantage on the save, and if you save, you take 0 damage instead of half for the whole group. It's a 30-foot aura. So it's like that completely reduced the amount of damage, but that's fine. Like they're taking so much damage from tentacles and everything else. Right. I wasn't worried about the fact that that's getting negated. And I was like, that's fine. Like, you know, it's cool. But they poured damage on the Soulmonger. I did boost the Soulmonger's hit points to a higher, like it had hit dice, I think. I don't remember if it had hit dice, but I boosted it had 300 hit points in mine.
What did they go after first?
So I kind of gave them the solid hint that your whole, I think it was one of the players said it, and then I kind of pointed at them and said, everybody should pay attention to that, right? And they said, like, wait a minute, our only goal here is to destroy the Soulmonger, right? The Atropol is a secondary effect, and we can all die, and that's fine as long as the Soulmonger is destroyed. And then I said, like, you realize, like, you know, that focus comes to you as you stare in this terrible place, that, like, all we need to do is destroy that. And then they made the choice to start attacking the Soulmonger directly and not hitting the adamantine bars. And at some point, they kind of said, like, wait, did we make a mistake? And, like, we're going to have to destroy those bars? And I just flat out told them, no, you can attack either. You know, but you've already piled damage on the Soulmonger. You probably want to keep doing that, you know. And the only issue there was that the bars have a higher AC but a lower hit point. And in the adventure, if you destroy any bar, you destroy the Soulmonger, right? So I scaled that up too. That like you have to destroy probably 2 of them. It was sort of like the more characters are on the table, the harder it's going to be to destroy all this stuff. This is if I'm going with my alpha stream, you know, rock walls get harder if you're a higher level. My Soulmonger gets more difficult depending on the number of people that walk through the door. Only for battles like this, right? Because you want a battle like this to be
Acer knows exactly how many people are going to walk in through that door.
Right. And he's, you know, suddenly the adamantine all gets much stronger if 6 people walk in than 4.
My Skeletor Ace. So there's 7 of you coming.
Yeah. Mine was very. So I was getting over a cold, so I still had some of my deep phlegm that I could use. So that battle went really well in both groups, and it was hard but not insurmountable. Both groups felt challenged but not frustrated, and they succeeded. And then a Sararak shows up.
All right, so let me ask you a question before you get to Saura.
Yeah.
By the time they destroyed the Soulmonger and the floating fetus, how down were they?
I have no idea, actually. I think they were down quite a bit, but I you know, a lot of them by this point had a bunch of crazy abilities going on. And like my wife's character had the Constitution at 23 or whatever it was, or 26, right? So she had like 190 hit points. I don't think I took her down, and she's an archer, so I don't think she got hit very hard. But I know there was a lot of talk about healing, and there was a lot of talk about, you know, they were definitely, I don't think anybody dropped. I'm not sure that anybody dropped in the fight.
Do you monitor how down the players are
typically
going?
Not. Only when they'd start falling.
Okay.
Yeah, when they start falling, I'm paying attention. But generally through then I don't pay attention to what their health is.
And we're talking about 12th level characters, right?
They were 10th in mine.
10th.
Yeah, I held them back a lot. So that I think was a frustrating thing, and I definitely heard about it from both groups, that like when they were in the tomb, they almost hardly leveled at all. Like they were in the tomb for months, like actual out of game months, and they leveled once. They went from 9th to 10th, you know, in the tomb. And I purposefully, you know, held the level back so that they wouldn't just start eating through everything that was in the dungeon.
Right.
You know, but it meant that they did not level nearly as fast as I would have liked them to level otherwise. Like this adventure took us a year to play for both groups, about 50-ish, a little less than 50 sessions, I think. Something like that, 45-ish sessions. And I think we came close to that in Storm King's Thunder, and they were like level 16 at the end of Storm King's Thunder. So they could have leveled a lot faster. But I do milestone, which means I could just not have them.
I'm doing milestone as well,
yeah.
But I leveled them up. I made sure that by the time they got to the end, they were at the level they were supposed to be.
I thought that, well, at what level were they supposed to be? I thought, was I far off?
I think it was 11 or 12.
Yeah, 12 would be, I mean, like as soon as you hit things, like now you got 6 level spells. There's all kinds of nutty stuff that's going to go on.
Like I think I leveled them to 12 after, maybe.
Yeah.
Now I don't remember because it's been a while.
Yeah, did you see my Death God? I got to show him on the camera. Hang on a sec. I got him right.
Yeah, you bought the 3D print. You know what? Hold on. I'm going to show you mine. I'll be right back.
So the cool bit was one of the players in my other group 3D printed this guy. He is awful. He 3D printed and painted him. I'm showing him on the camera so everybody can see. It's a big lolly tongue hanging out. The Death God.
So here's mine.
Yeah.
This one is a 3D print
That's
from Miguel Zavala.
Yeah. I don't know what model this one was.
I know which one that is because I almost bought it. That one's
it's like, do you want the umbilical coming out of the belly or the head is kind of the question.
So I 3D printed this guy and I painted it. And,
yeah.
He's kind of creepy looking.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea that one of the players is the guy that put all this together, and then there was the one that dropped it on the table. So it was pretty awful.
And oh, by the way, here's the boat I bought. Right.
Oh, cool.
So this boat is it's called a laser cut.
Mm-hmm.
And all these pieces come in a sheet. It's wood, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you pop them out of the sheet and you build it. You put it together. You got to glue it in place and stuff.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah.
So what happened when Acererak showed up?
So by the time he showed up, I really feel I could have killed all of them.
Oh, so one question about the Atropol and the death. So I talked about what happened in mine. Did you run it as is in yours, and what did you find? How did it work for you when running the Atropol and the Soulmonger?
I ran it as is.
Yeah.
And I found it to be, and I think it's because my players are not, one, they're not optimized.
Yeah.
And two, they're not very tactically, they're more tactically oriented than me for sure.
Right.
But they're not gelling as a group at this point. Mm-hmm. Maybe as good as other groups because they haven't
at 12th level. At 12th level in the Tomb of Annihilation.
Yeah, but we had 2 new players come in.
Gotcha. How many players?
We had 2. So we had 6.
Okay.
2 of them were brand new to D&D.
Right. Yep. I have one person that was brand new to 5th edition who played old 1st and 2nd.
So these guys are brand new to D&D.
Yeah.
and suddenly they're leveling up, leveling. You know, I introduced them as prisoners in the Yuan Ti thing, so they're kind of they're new to the game, so they're not as optimized as they could be, and they're not as tactically oriented as maybe they should be. So I found the fights hard for them.
They had a hard time with it.
They had a hard time with it.
Yeah,
they survived, but it was hard. It wasn't an easy fight.
How did they end up destroying the Soulmonger?
I think they destroyed the
rods.
The adamant, the rods, and it fell in the thing.
And they only said when they destroyed one, it fell.
Yeah. No, I didn't. No, I made it so they had to destroy more than one.
Okay, yeah, because the book I think it had it as one. But one is easy. Like it's AC 20 with like 100 hit points.
Yeah, no. I had to destroy it.
You could do it in one round.
I want to say I did all 3.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, I did 2 for the other one, but only after they kind of split their damage up. And that's the nice thing. So so tell me, let me confess to you, and you can absolve my sins. I've ordained you as someone who can absolve sins. But I like to have dials during my game that let me change the difficulty on the fly. And one of the dials in that one is the number of rods. Like if it turns out that they're just smashing rods easily, then it might need to be all 3. But if they're having a hell of a time, maybe it's just 1, right? And that we can change that during the fight. But it feels like cheating because it feels like, well, what the hell am I bothering to roll dice for if you're just going to arbitrarily change the number of rods it takes to blow the thing up, right?
But they don't know that.
They don't know that. Although one of my players is in the chat now, so now he's going to be pissed. But that's ludicious. But he's just mad that he doesn't get Vorpal swords, and he's still not going to get any Vorpal swords.
Oh, do you know how mad my players are about the treasure that they did not find in this thing?
Oh, did you tell them? Like, oh man, or just in general, they just didn't get anything.
Just in general, they didn't get a lot of stuff.
My guys walked away with a ton of stuff.
But
they got all kinds of crazy.
But to go back to that point with the struts, I don't see that really as a. I think that's part of the DM's toolbox is really the ability to do stuff.
Knowing what those dials are, and that was where like sort of the dial I turned up was when you have 6. You mentioned like if you have 6 players, I'm going to go ahead and let those tentacles hit you for damage and pick you up and hold you over lava. They just won't drop you in it. And that was a subtle change that I made that I thought added to some stress. And it meant that even if you do have ways to get out of the tentacle, you still took some damage, 25 points of damage or whatever.
So they had a hard time. And then the 2 new players got really caught up with the phylacteries on the side. Yeah. And they really felt that was important for some reason. And they started investigating over there and walking over there. In the meantime, one of them got really hurt while on the way there. I think he got hit with some tentacles, and there was no reason to go there, basically. And I tried to sort of telegraph that to the new players.
Yeah, right.
But I wasn't going to tell them not to because that's the point of the game. You could do whatever you want. Right?
Yeah.
You go to the phylacteries.
Yeah.
But then they started exploring them, and they thought that doing something with them could. And by the time we got to the fight with Acerak,
right.
It was like I had a bunch of people who were really hurt.
Yeah, right. So he's going to show up and start power with killing people.
They were really hurt, and I'm like, I could kill all these guys.
Yeah,
I could kill all of them right now if I really wanted to, and I'm like, I can't do that.
Yeah, it's an awkward situation. So both groups basically kind of talked their way out of it. My first group more than the second. And that was like, I realized, and I was going to write an article on slyflourish about it, that like, I have no good advice for running that fight because both of mine were drastically different from one another. And it's probably going to be drastically different for everybody that runs them. And in mine, it was like, to me, the interesting part is, what do the characters possess that is more important to a Saura than the Soulmonger and his Atropal? And in both groups, I played up the idea that the characters had a key that could open up the realm of the Night Serpent, and that there was a whole other world with a world-destroying power that's already born, that's more powerful than his death god, and the characters have access to it, and a Saura wants that access, right? And in one group, it was one of the players, one of the characters, had been cursed, and throughout the entire game, while they're in Omu. He started getting weird tattoos that showed up on his arm that meant he was the key to open the door to the realm of the Night Serpent. And he also started becoming a lich, which meant Acererak wanted him as an apprentice. So when Acererak shows up, and he started power word killing people, like a lot of it was there's usually some smartass that says something to Acererak, right? So like Acererak, and I don't remember what it was, but my friend Mike, who's in the chat, will say, because it was his character who did it. And he got the ultimate revenge, which was he said some nonsense. He said some BS to Acererak when Acererak shows up. And Acererak just looks at her and power word kills her. But she had death ward.
Power word kill.
Yeah. I always go with die.
Power word kill.
Yeah. So, oh my God. So 2 of my players. So Joe is the player in my Sunday group who was played in this game, and Mike was there as well. He's Ludicious, and Joe Cup are the 2 guys in chat that were both players. So they're going to learn all my dirty secrets. But they both played through the whole thing.
Did I meet him at your house that one time I went to your house?
You probably met Mike. I don't think you met. You didn't meet Joe because Joe hasn't been to my house.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, he came in and said, "What did you guys do? What did you insects do?" And Fesky, who played by Ludicious, is in chat, said, we thought you'd be smart enough to figure it out. Like we thought you're a smart guy, right?" And then he looked at it and said, "Die," and hit it with her power word kill. And then she had death ward up. She's like, oh. Like, I'm not dead. And so it's like, are you kidding? He just blew a 9th level spell. And it did 0. It literally did nothing, So he started kind of throwing. I altered his spell lineup a bit, and I gave him instead of being able to throw lightning bolts as legendary actions, I had him have a like a necrotic blast that could target 2 creatures, and he could hit those guys with them. And it would still do like lightning level damage. It was like 28 points of damage, and you do a con save.
Reskin the lightning bolt spell basically?
Yeah, I took lightning bolt and made it necrotic, and instead of having it be a line, he could target 2 people, and that way I don't have to screw around with lines.
Like a chain lightning.
Yeah, sort of like a small chain lightning.
Necrotic chain lightning.
Necrotic, exactly. That does con instead of dex.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's easy to do, and like I could do that in my head and not have to modify anything. So he started. Joe Kupski's like, "Where's Knock?" Because do you remember my big complaint about Acererak's spell lineup? He's one of the only guys that can cast 3rd level spells as a legendary action, and his spell lineup has Knock and Arcane Lock in it, and not Lightning Bolt or Fireball, right? It's like, can you imagine a player ever making a character that doesn't have Lightning Bolt or Fireball? It's ridiculous.
Can you imagine Acererak needing Knock?
Right. No, he has Disintegrate. He has Wish. There's no door he can't walk through. So, that's a whole other topic. But anyway, in both of mine, it was kind of this, yakety sax moment of trying to get away from Acererak and not get hosed. And my Sunday group ended up, one of the characters, Ogechi, who's played by Joe Cup, who's in chat right now, he was the one that was turning into a lich and also had the tattoos of the Night Serpent on his arm that meant he could open the door. And Acererak said, "Join me, sign this contract and you'll serve me for 1,000 years, which is nothing in the life of a lich. But in that side, I will show you crazy magic beyond anything you've ever seen before. You think you're powerful now. Just wait till you're one of my apprentices." And he said, "Well, what about my friends?" And Acerek's like, "If you want me to save your friends, I will, but you're going to laugh so hard about the fact that you gave a damn about them." And it was like, he's basically saying like, you're in a whole other world when you join me. And he said, "Sure, I'll do it." And he said, "All right, let me whip up a contract." And he snaps his fingers and a succubus shows up with this contract. And the succubus goes over and Ogechi, the character, starts to sign it. And he's like reading. It's like, "I don't know, this is really long. I got to read through all this text." And he's like, "That's fine. I'll just start lightning bolting people." Right. And so Acererak starts, that guy who's throwing liches into the lava. Yeah. I'm going to start hitting him with a sphere of annihilation. And then they charmed the succubus and got her to forge the contract. What? So they hit her with a charm, which worked. It succeeded. So she signed Acererak's name to the contract instead of the character, and then wrapped it up and handed it to Acererak, who's like, "Okay, we're good." And then he disappeared. The guy's like, "I got away. Like, I didn't even sign the contract." So I thought that was pretty clever, and the players loved it. So I'm like, we're going with it. That's awesome, right? They got away. The second group had the dagger that it had a dagger that was the key to opening up the realm of the Night Serpent. My wife's character, Shelby, had it. It had been smuggled. It's a whole long story. It's a pain in the ass, but it got smuggled on her body. So she had this dagger. And he said, you're carrying an artifact that I want. If you give it to me, we can just walk away from all this. Like, I really don't care about you guys, and you're a waste of my time. Just give me the dagger and we'll walk away. And by the way, I could just kill you and take it. But it's just less time. Just hand it to me. So he was going to get rid of the dagger, instead hurls it towards the sphere of annihilation. And two of the other characters like leap in the way and stop it. And one of them picks it up and is going to hand it to him. And then he throws it into the sphere of annihilation and destroys it. So now Acererak lost the key, on top of the fact that he lost the Soulmonger and the Atropal. And now he's like, oh, you sons of bitches. And he starts blasting him with his crazy. And they all jump out the portal and get through, and then modify the portal so he can't get through, and then run away. So that was a little bizarre, right? And like I said, it's a little yakety sax like you're telling me this guy who can cast Wish twice can't get to the characters after they land through a portal, like, okay. But then I thought about it, and I was like, a really fun. So one of the things I do at the end of all my campaigns, and I really enjoy it because I learn a lot, and I love to hear where it goes. Is I like to jump 1 year ahead. So the campaign will end. They escape the tomb. They're out front. 1 year goes by. What has happened with your character, right? And then people can kind of jump in and say, my character returns to the Sword Coast and heads north with all of the experience that he's had, and spends months in solitude just trying to absorb what happened. And then another guy says, I want to go and I want to go back to my tribe and teach my tribe about, I want to kind of bring them up. And another one makes a temple. And they all had these really interesting kind of side stories about what their character did after the end of Tomb. And then I thought, like, what if Acererak comes back and he's like, you guys screwed me. I'm going to curse all of you. And now you have to do something for me. And now it's like an 11 to 20 campaign where they have to, a mixture of kind of breaking through whatever curse he gave them. Like, either are they trying to kill Acererak, or are they stuck having to do work for him, or both?
So when you brought that up on Twitter,
yeah,
I answered you. I don't know if you read it. I thought it was really cool, but I said, I told you, have the players describe the curse.
Right. I did read that. Yeah.
And then tie that curse into their bonds and their flaws and their
so they have a thing, like, if
so they have a reason to care about the curse.
Yeah. If one of them is like the hunter for the tribe of turtles, then the whole tribe will be cursed forever.
Right.
If you don't do this thing. Right.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. I think I could just and it's almost like maybe all I have to do is say that, right? And then like everybody in their mind has a whole campaign that we never actually run. Yeah. But in their head they had one, So I think that there's a lot of fun. Yeah.
In my game, this guy basically wiped the floor with them.
Yeah.
Right.
Did he kill anybody?
No, because I pulled my punches.
Okay.
Right.
Yep.
Because again, I had these 20 players.
It's the end of the game. Like, why kill everybody at the end of the game?
I don't want to do that.
Yeah,
right.
I felt the same way.
But what I did was he basically I got him down to where I thought, okay, that's enough.
Yeah.
Right. And then he decided to stop playing with them.
Mm-hmm.
He let them live so that they could warn Faerun that he was coming back.
Ah, okay.
For more.
Yeah.
That the world basically was tell Faerun who I am and tell them they're not safe.
Right.
Some nonsense like that.
Right.
And that he'd be coming back later to really take care of business in Faerun.
Mm-hmm.
Whether I do anything with that or not, I don't know, because I'd rather run a pre-published.
Yeah, right. I don't know that I'll ever get around to running a 11 to 20 campaign.
But my players did say we want to revisit these characters.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's run Waterdeep, and then we'll come back to these guys. So I got to figure something out for these 12 level characters. Mm-hmm. And then I discovered that Kong giant, and I'm like, man, I want to do something with him.
Yeah, the Kong. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you and I had talked about him. He was one of the villains in my Storm King's Thunder game.
Yeah.
And Stone Giant Liches are awesome.
Yeah. So I have this Acererak threat looming overhead, which may or may not, Acererak could come back in 1,000 years and do something with everyone. Who knows? And I got a group of players that want to take this past 12th level, and I don't have anything ready to go past 12th level. I'm using Waterdeep as a buffer there because I got to think about what I do.
Yeah, I don't know if you dug into it much, but Out of the Abyss, just for stuff to steal from, Out of the Abyss has a lot of cool high level stuff to steal from. You know, there's at least a lot of really cool maps you could harvest, and there's like stone giant libraries, and
I got to craft a narrative around it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I see Evil John there said kind of a downer ending. It is, but at the end, remember that the goal of the adventure was ending the death curse.
Yeah,
and they did.
And they did it. They accomplished it. Yeah,
they accomplished it. That's really the victory.
Yeah, I mean, I think that. So one thing is I haven't. You know, we didn't talk about running it as is, like where everybody starts getting 50 hit points. Did you do that whole thing where the trickster gods start granting everybody 50 temporary hit points at the beginning of the turn?
No.
So in the published adventure, as written, as soon as the Sarak shows up, all of the trickster gods start giving their host 50 temporary hit points at the beginning of every turn. And what I read was it was just a grind. So like I gave people 25 hit points because I heard like if 50 is just crazy. Like basically he's just hammering them with spells and they're not taking any damage because he can't do 50 hit points worth of damage to every character on the board.
Did you have did every player have a trickster god?
No, I had one of them that didn't, and it was the one who got disintegrated twice, so she got screwed. Yeah. You know, but the other thing though is none of the players kind of realized like, wait a minute, we can actually take him on with that, you know. And I don't know if they could, because he can also like maze them and prismatic sphere them. He got, even if they have hit points, there's like 50 different ways he can get rid of them. And power word kill doesn't prevent that anyway, right? I mean, here's a guy who could literally cast 2 wishes. You know, what are you going to do with that? So it was this very bizarre. Like, I guess on one side, it's like, well, you want him to show up because it's like he's on the cover of the book, for crying out loud. And you've been hearing about him all this time.
2 books.
Is he? What other book is he on the cover of?
The DMG, right?
Oh, yeah, right. So he's on the cover of the DMG. So, like, you want to do something with him. And the idea of, like, well, we'll just pour hit points on characters and then they'll beat him to death eventually. And then he'll just get mad and teleport away. You know, it wasn't great. So I think that, like, him showing up is a really tricky piece of this adventure. And like I remember, like I ran it once and I was really like the whole thing with the succubus and the contract, that was funny and fun, and it kind of worked, right? That like he's so arrogant, he got bamboozled, you know, and didn't even realize it till later. He's like, wait a minute, I signed what? You know, and but I was like, well, that's no use to me running it for another group. You know, like that was totally unique to that group, and now I ran it for the other group, and that's totally unique too. So I don't have a good answer for, like, you know, other than I think it's interesting to say, what can the characters offer a Sarak that's worth more to him than the death of the Atropal and the destruction of the Soulmonger, you know? And it's not even their lives, right? Like them working for him isn't enough unless there's something really special about him, you know. But something like you almost want to plant something early on in the campaign that grows with the characters. That's something he would give a damn about. You know, it's tricky.
What do you care about when you're
I mean, for me, it was the Night Serpent. You know, that another elder evil that's already like the Night Serpent is another elder evil that's already more powerful than the Atropal would be. And if he can reach it, you know, not even control it, not even, you know, but if he could just get there, that would be, you know, he might be distracted enough. You know, he loves old magic too. So if there was some artifact that he didn't have that they had or knew where it was, he would want that too, right? Like he's, you know, he's the kind of, like, if anybody knows how to like let go of something, it's him, because he's so old. So for him to see the destruction of the Soulmonger, he's not like, I want to get revenge. He doesn't care about revenge, right? So for him, it's like, well, it's already destroyed. What can I make out of this? And it's like, well, now I got these 6 people. Maybe they can do something for me.
Maybe there's something at the bottom of the dungeon of the Mad Mage that he can
do. Right. So some kind of hook, you know. And I think the one thing that I would try to recommend for people that are going to run this all the way through is it's probably worth planting that seed early in the game of what can they offer a Sarak at the end. Either that or figure out another way where you can fight. You know, you can fight him and you know, not have it suck. I don't know. It
just at the end,
it's an awkward encounter.
At the end, I felt like he was a very disposable, big bad, evil guy to end an adventure with, because I never felt that they were gonna kill him.
Right.
So he kind of shows up, does his cameo appearance.
Right.
He gets his applause there as a sitcom character coming out and waving at the crowd, and then he leaves.
Yeah.
I don't know. He it seemed like he had to be there because, like you said, the guy's on the cover.
Right.
But realistically, I picture him as a guy for a group of level 20 adventurers to do.
Oh yeah, right. And level 20, he should be hard, right? Like he should be a challenge for level 20s.
This guy should be a campaign ending.
Right. Not just us show up and shake his fist at you.
Not just show up and Skeletor his, Skeletor his. I'm gonna get you.
Oh, you vexing adventurers.
Yeah, like this guy should be ending a 1 through 20. This guy's Orcus.
Yeah.
I
always laugh. My wife likes this, and I always laugh that so Orcus is the father of liches, right? Like liches make a pact with Orcus to become a lich, and I always like the idea that the only one that's special is a Serac. So he's like, wait, a Serac is coming? Clean. Somebody, start wiping stuff down. Like, do I look all right? Do I look okay? A Serac's coming. Like I like that he's kind of worried about him. He's like he doesn't even want to be a god. Like he could have been a god, but he doesn't feel like it.
Like really, I see him. I see the other guy. Who's the guy that runs the lich that runs the Red Wizards?
Zastam.
Him. Yeah. Like I see him as a campaign-ending big bad evil guy in the Forgotten Realms.
Right. And the truth is, like, a Serac is probably worse than Zastam is.
No, absolutely. I'm not putting them at equal par.
But they're campaign-ending bosses. Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that these guys are campaign-ending bosses, and this guy shows up halfway through the character's career as adventurers.
Level 11, yeah.
Like, these guys are going to get to level 20 and say, remember when we fought the greatest lich in the universe?
Yeah, right. Yeah, we beat his ass until he teleported away.
And we beat his ass until he teleported away, and we fooled him signing a stupid contract. Remember that?
Yeah.
And to me, it's hard to so what's the word I'm looking for? It's hard to reconcile that.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know.
I mean, I had the part. Yeah, I feel you, but like I also think back to my Out of the Abyss campaign where Orcus was killed when a giant ape hurled an iron golem at him. So I've had a lot of goofy stuff happen in my games, and everybody remembers it. So it's like, well, if you beat Orcus by hurling an iron golem at him as polymorphed as a giant ape, memories, man.
I mean, those are the things you talk about 20 years
later.
Right,
and like, that's what we're gonna remember, and like
that's the stuff, that's the stuff you remember.
Yeah. So
I don't know how much longer you could stay up.
Yeah, how about another like 10 minutes or so?
So let's talk Waterdeep.
All right.
So I'm already running it.
Yeah. So am I.
You started already?
Yeah, we're in chapter 2 right now. So I played the playtest before, so I played it a year ago.
Yeah, I played the playtest.
Okay, and now I'm playing through the hardback, the published one.
Which, by the way, if we're gonna get into playtest, and I don't want to say too much, I don't know how much I'm allowed to say about this, but the playtest for Tomb of Annihilation, the way the characters got into Port 9 Zaru versus the way they got into Port 9 Zaru in the published book were very different, and I was very angry when I saw what ended up being published versus what was in the playtest.
I wasn't angry because I just ran it the original way. I was like, boat ride it is.
My goodness. Yeah. I felt like, what a thing to change, man.
I know.
Like,
it was a little weird.
This really sucks.
Yeah.
Anyways, back to Waterdeep.
Yeah.
So Waterdeep, I'm having... and I should correct myself because I came out saying, wow, what a great introductory adventure.
Yeah, I remember you saying that, and I'm like...
Yeah. And now I'm running it, and I'm in chapter 2, and I'm like, wow, what a terrible introductory adventure.
I'm like, I even ran it before, and I'm having a lot of trouble with chapter 2. Like, I kind of don't know what to do with it. And now I've got the ideas, like, but it's a little too vague.
You know what I did, right?
You told me.
Well, no, but I didn't tell you this part.
Yeah.
So I'm in the middle of running chapter 2, and I'm having a real hard time running chapter 2. So you know what I did? Fireball!
Yeah, right. And that kind of works. So you can throw that fireball in any time. Like anytime you're bored with the chapter, throw the fireball, and it goes right back into a linear. Yeah.
But Mike, I had to do it because I had run out of I had a real hard time with chapter 2. It's like, what am I supposed to? What are we like? It felt like an aimless. Like the players were chasing red herrings everywhere.
Yeah, so that's part of the I think it offers like 27 small quests in that chapter. Like you have 7 faction agents, and every one of them has 5 or 4 potential quests. Yeah, no, 5 potential quests that they can offer, and many of them are totally unrelated to the issue of the dragons.
Completely, you know, like my players were wandering around Waterdeep looking for a talking horse. Right? So they're like, we're looking for Mr. Ed. We got to find Mr. Ed. Blah blah blah. When they find the stupid talking horse, like they spent so much time trying to tie it into the heist.
Why it matters, yeah. And there's no tie,
and it doesn't. And it broke my heart to make him see that this has nothing to do with the story.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Hey, Grant Ellis is here.
Man. And a lot of the factions are that way. And when you take my group, who does not do organized play, so they have no idea what the factions freaking are.
Right.
They don't care about the Emerald Enclave, and they don't care about. I have one player who's a Harper.
Right.
It felt like a chapter that goes nowhere and it goes everywhere all at the same time. Like you cover the entire city, running around looking for shit that has nothing to do with the heist.
Yeah.
So I felt I had to throw that fireball in there as soon as possible.
Yeah, sure.
But now they're thinking, well, we got to go back and look for whatever it is that they were doing in the faction quests, while at the same time investigating the fireball. So I think I even gave myself a bigger of a headache now.
Yeah, I think it was a bit of an experiment with that. I think that whole book was a bit of an experiment, right? And of sort of like a different ways of sort of offering up adventures. And I don't think it was as tightly knit as like Tomb of Annihilation or, you know, Curse of Strahd or, you know, some of the other ones that kind of clearly delineate how things are supposed to go. Even in a sandboxy way, they're still like, well, their goals are still this. And that one, yeah, they kind of, you know, I think they even said that their expectation was that characters could potentially spend months in chapter 2, right? That in game time, it might be months before they get back involved, before, you know, the dude shows up and sets things off with Fireball. But yeah, I just feel like, so I radically reduced the number of options in that one. I didn't have 7 faction guys showed up. I basically picked 2 or 3. So I had like, and it was only ones that they already had hints of. So it's like, you know, I had a member of Brigand Diarth show up, and I had the Zinterim show up, you know, and I'm probably going to have someone from Force Grey show up, because I'm honest to God, I'm so tired of the 5 factions. Like, I just don't need any more about Emerald Enclave and Harper's, and you know, it's like even organized play got rid of the factions, you know. So why are we? Yeah, you don't really have, you don't, you know.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, organized. Yeah, the whole Adventurers League doesn't have factions and faction quests and all that stuff anymore. You don't pick
for this. I haven't introduced it yet.
Yeah, so it's like, to me, that's kind of an interesting one. Is like, factions can be loose; they don't have to be these like tightly defined ones. But like, I just don't need the same 5 factions to show up in every single adventure. And I didn't for Tomb of Annihilation either. That I had factions that showed up there were like, you know, Flaming Fist. You know, my characters and one of them were all Flaming Fist mercenaries that were hired to do this job. And that actually worked really well. Kind of picking one faction, I think, works really nicely. If you can get all the players on board with saying like, we are all Zinterim or we're all Emerald Enclave, like, then you've got this nice, tight, cohesive group that has a reason to be together, and their quest NPCs are clear and their goals and motivations are clear. You know, that I think works really well.
I have a player who's a Flaming Fist mercenary.
Yeah.
I have a player who's a Harper.
Mm-hmm.
But the rest are
free agents.
A-holes.
Yeah, and so the hard part is like, when they're separate like that, it's really hard to like tie in all of the individual factions to, like, you know, to their character. You know, I mean, they never really got it to work in organized play. Like the whole faction quest, like, oh, if you're a Zinterim, you get this extra little bauble because
it's not easy, because why would you want to be a Zinterim?
Yeah, well, some people love it. There were a lot of Zinterims out there. Yeah.
No, but I mean, like in this adventure in particular.
Yeah. So this one, I don't know. Yeah. So for me, it's all character driven, and the idea that like we have this rich aristocratic, I think he's a fighter. Joe Kupsky will have to tell me in chat. I think he's a fighter, but he's like a son of a rich family of merchants, and he has now sort of set up a relationship with the half-orc Zinterim woman that you meet in the bar, and so now she's starting to use him on Zinterim quests because he's got this, you know, this relationship with her. You know, that was like a fun character driven way to sort of bring a faction in.
So I kind of did something similar. So there's one character in my game who is actually the Flaming Fist guy. He's acting as a double agent, and he's working for the Zents.
Yeah.
Right? Because he's friends with the orc in the Yawning Portal.
Mm-hmm. Yagra Stonefist.
Yeah, and she's sending him on missions. Like, for example, last time we played before the fireball went off, they went hunting for somebody killing half-elves and elves in Dockward.
Mm-hmm.
And the drow who's doing the killing is one of the guys from Jarlaxle's band of drows.
Mm-hmm.
So now I got to tie that into the story because I already set the fireball off. So I have a lot of work. This adventure gives DMs a lot of work.
Yeah, it's not easy. Like,
it's not easy to connect dots in this.
I consider myself a relatively experienced DM, and I struggle with how to run that. You know,
there's a lot of dot connecting, and there's a lot of like I crapped my pants last session because we were investigating the fireball, and they actually went to the villa where the robot runs into.
Mm-hmm.
And they knocked on the door to talk to the owners of the house. And I'm like, oh, shit, I really haven't read this whole thing. What am I supposed to do here now?
Wing it. You wing it like we always do.
Yeah. Like I really crapped my pants. I'm like, oh shit, I'm not ready for this. So I had to help open the door.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, it's such and such, the owners of the house here. We're looking for the whatever the robot's called. I forgot now the name of the machine.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about though. Yeah.
And so the help was basically, no, the Lord and Mistress are not home, and you're not welcome here. And I close the doors, like basically get out of here because I'm not ready for this.
Nimble rights. Yeah, the thing is called a nimble right.
The nimble right, right? The nimble right.
Yeah, I had a little foreshadowing of that. I mean, I with every one of these adventures, it's like they'll end up being fun. Like, our group will still have a good time, and we'll all still laugh about it. But yeah, there are parts of it that. And there's one part coming up. I don't know if you you said you did play the playtest of this one? Or you read it at least?
Yeah.
So there's the chase in chapter 4, I think. Has like the big long chase part. And when I playtested that part, I also had a hard time with it because it was like the thing you wanted was always just out of reach. And it felt like every bad scripted event from like a video game where they want you to go scene by scene, but never actually accomplish the thing you're supposed to accomplish. And the time I ran it as the playtest and the time I'm planning to run it now, it's way better to run it as an investigation where they're trying to track where this thing went scene by scene rather than trying to get it, right? That like, we know it was here. Where was it next? And then they're sort of backtracking through it. And I found that to be a much more interesting way to run that whole, chapter.
I think my other...
It already well passed through everything. You're just trying to figure out where it was last.
My other issue with the book is that there's a lot of unused material in this book.
Tons.
Or a lot of potentially unused material in this book.
Yeah, it's like a 160-page adventure for 5 levels.
And you wonder, and I wonder out loud the other day on Twitter, like what the design philosophy was for that.
Yeah.
Because
what am I supposed to do with 4 layers? Yeah.
You have 3 seasons that are going to go unused.
Right.
So you have 3 seasons worth of content.
Yeah.
That you won't use, and then the layers.
Yeah.
Is another aspect that potentially could completely go.
Yeah, and Evil John says replay value, but I don't see it here, and I don't see it here for a couple of reasons.
But for who? For the players, you can't have the same adventure 4 times.
Right, and so any adventure has replay value when I have different players. Right, for one, I don't need much, but the replay value for the same players isn't there because the beginning and the end are the same.
Same thing.
And the whole plot is the same. So it isn't replayable like Curse of Strahd is replayable, where everyone knows the goal up front in Curse of Strahd, which is kill Strahd, but where you're going to get the components to kill him are in totally different places every time. That's still the best 5e
adventure. Yeah. That's still the best 5e adventure published.
I think it's the best adventure, period. I think the original I6, first edition one was the best adventure ever written. And written for that reason. Like, I literally run it every year, and I have fun every year, and it's different every year. And the players are the same many times. And
like
still
I love running Death House for Halloween.
Death House is great. Yeah, I run the abbreviated version of Castle Ravenloft every Halloween, where like, you know, and I used I think it was Jeff Greiner who brought up Jeff Greiner and James Castle had good ones for this, but it's essentially you're in the cart racing to the front door of Ravenloft while you're getting your fortune told, and they tell the fortune and then kick you out, and now you're in the castle. You know, it's could be faster.
I just feel I don't want to beat up on Waterdeep too much, but I just feel like if you're selling me a hardback that's going to take me a while to get through, and we got to commit to time, I want to be able to get the most out of this hardback.
Yeah,
and I want to be able to get the most out of it, and it feels like I'm leaving a lot on the table here that I'm never gonna get to use.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think like there's a good amount of material for a DM who is willing to reconstitute it into something else. So like if you're willing to use those other layers, you know, and throw hooks in that mean you have to go to some of these places and you know, you can actually turn it into a heist, right? It could be that the thing you need is actually in one of those layers, and you have to go through the layer and get it without the main boss coming after you. To me,
it's the keys to get into the vault.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So to me, what I'm planning to do is each key is in one of the layers, and all the bosses are in Waterdeep, and they all have a key to this vault, but amongst themselves, they don't all have the keys. Not one person has all the keys, so everybody is pulling in their own direction, and maybe that's the way to do it. I haven't thought about it too much,
right?
But I'm thinking if I want to involve the enemies, all of them, and the layers, I'm going to put the keys in their layers and see what happens there.
Right.
It might be a little too tough. I gotta look at it and think about it a little more. But
yeah,
I want to be able to use that content.
Yeah.
And you know, maybe that will extend the adventure past level 5. I don't know. Maybe.
So I mean, I think that I know that Wizards likes to experiment with their adventures, right? And if you look at kind of the structure of the adventures that they've made so far, there are some that are very linear, like the whole Hoard of the Dragon Queen and Rise of Tiamat had a pretty linear storyline. There are some that are pretty sandboxy. Storm King's Thunder is a huge sandbox, right? It's like you go anywhere in the Sword Coast and get involved in any number of adventures. And here's 250 locations you might explore and little storylines that are going on at each of them. And then you get like these sort of half and half sandboxes, like Tomb of Annihilation, where it's like we're going to mix a mega dungeon with a sandbox hex exploration one. So I think what's that? Yeah, and a city, right? So here's a city, here's a jungle, here's a sandbox ruined city, and then here's a mega dungeon, you know, all kind of in one adventure. I think they're trying out lots of different things, and I applaud them for that. I applaud them for experimenting with it. Sometimes it's like you're experimenting with my $50, you know, like you know, but I don't think I haven't found one where I'm like, man, I wish I didn't buy that. You know, like, I mean, I played the playtest of Dragon Heist, and I still immediately bought the hardback and got it on D&D Beyond. You know, so
looking ahead, and Evil John mentioned Saltmarsh.
Saltmarsh, right?
So recently, I went ahead and looked at all the adventures that Saltmarsh is going to include. I went back to the Dungeon magazines, and I went through all the different adventures that the book has.
Yeah,
so it includes the old UK1 adventures, The Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh, and that trilogy. And then it goes into classic classic adventures from Dungeon. And I'm wondering if they're gonna sandbox Saltmarsh, or if they're gonna create a linear type of campaign that you could sort of thread.
Yeah.
Because that's interesting too. I'm really hoping that they at least provide a way to thread the adventures if you want to.
I mean, I think they you know, it sounds, from their marketing, from their discussion about it, it sounds like it will be more tightly tied together than Yawning Portal was, right? Like Yawning Portal kind of said, like, you could run all these together if you want, but there's no real connection between them, right?
And they don't give any. Like,
and they don't give any. Saltmarsh definitely feels like there's going to be a tighter thread among these adventures. How tight, we'll have to see. You know, and I don't really know, but I'm, you know, generally speaking, I've been happy with everything of theirs that I've run, and I'm sure I'll be happy with this one too. Like I said, I pre-ordered the Beetle and Grimm box, and I don't know anything about it, you know, but I was just like, I know it'll be nice to have all that stuff and the maps and all that coolness. And so, I always, you know, this, so Teos always talks about this, like when we think about the value of this, and it's like, even in the ones where like Dragon Heist, it's like the dollar per hour of entertainment that we're getting is so high, you know, it's hard to complain, right? No. Like, we pay $50 for all kinds of stupid stuff. I paid $50 for video games I play for 2 hours. I'm like, yeah, I don't like this.
Even bad D&D, it's like bad pizza, right?
Yeah, right. It's still
kind of good.
I'll still have it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and my complaints about Waterdeep, you know, it's fine. Like we're still having fun.
Yeah, and like fun. It's I think they're manageable. And then like I made this effort where I'm going to write up a, you know, like I do with other published adventures, I'm going to write an article per chapter about like how to kind of twist it, you know.
Can't wait to read your chapter 2.
What's that? Yeah. Like, so I already started it, right? I started a whole thing about chapter 2 and how to kind of manage chapter 2. And it's tougher. So chapter 2 and I think chapter 4 are the two where I think, and maybe chapter 5 if we throw in the heist, the idea of like pulling the heist. And I'm going to try that with the group that I've got now. I really want to involve the villains more.
So the heist,
yeah,
which of course I think it's an open secret that there really is no.
Yeah, there's no heist in Dragon Heist.
No real heist.
The heist has occurred. The heist occurred 10 years ago when Neverember took it all.
Yeah, Neverember completed the heist.
Yeah, right. He was the one with the heist.
So I'm leaning towards just letting my players keep the money.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to play those characters again.
I recommend it. So I think I said this in my Session Zero that like I made it very clear to my Sunday group that like these guys are done when we're done with this adventure. Like, you know, don't expect that they're going to keep going on. Like you're not going to be dead, and you can hang on to your character sheet, but we're not going off. And I think I was reading Dungeon of the Mad Mage in the intro, and they said like, you know, you can play this at the end of Dragon Heist. I'm like, I don't think they're going to care. Like the characters that are involved in Dragon Heist are just not the kinds of personalities that are going to want to immediately go to a dungeon.
Especially not if they have 500,000 gold.
No, if they got $500,000 gold in their pocket. Yeah.
No. And so in Waterdeep, I referenced their previous characters from Tomb of Annihilation. They heard rumors about a death curse down south in the jungles of Cholt, and a group of brave adventurers that, you know, ended the curse. And I think next time we play, they'll hear about these players who, you know, left Waterdeep with 500,000 gold pieces in their pockets. Yeah.
Yeah. So my friend Pommel James said maybe wealthy NPCs, maybe the characters become wealthy NPCs that hire that hire the other group. I don't know why I'm typing to him when I can just talk. But I actually, so when I ran the play test for Dragon Heist, I ran Dragon Heist before Tomb of Annihilation. And I said, oh, it'll be cool. We'll take our Dragon Heist characters, which will be 5th level, and I'll bring them right into Tomb. And God, that was a huge mistake. And it complicated the game so much. And it took months to unweave that, because it's like they were rich. You know, they didn't have all of it. But they kept like 50,000. And it meant that like one of them owned his own ship, and another one, you know. So it was like, and then I had some players that were like, oh, I would like to bring my character in. And then other ones that are like, nah, I want to start with somebody new. And then they're all level 5, so they're higher level than they should be. It was a terrible mistake. So to me, a far better way to run it is start at 1 and tell everybody this is a short story we're telling. Mm-hmm. You know, we are all going to play through Jackie Brown, you know, and at the end of this, the story will be over, you know.
That's what I did.
Yeah, and so I think that's that way you don't care. You know, you don't care about what happens at the end, and that gives a lot of agency to the characters and the players to do lots of crazy stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you know it's not going to break whatever you're planning 5 levels out.
And again, they want to go back to the 12th level characters we left in Cholt.
Right. So you're cool anyway. Yeah.
So we're cool anyways. Yeah. I just got to figure out what we're going to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm actually going to be running, and you and I talked about this a little bit. I'm going to be running some Shadow of the Demon Lord now for a little bit. That my next, now that we're done with Tomb of Annihilation, I wanted to have a little bit more of a lighthearted experience.
Is that your Wednesday game?
Oh, my alarm went off. That's my Wednesday game. So my Sunday game, is already in Dragon Heist, and I think that by the time they're done with that is about the time Salt Marsh will come out. So I think it'll be a smooth transition there.
So do me a personal favor here.
Yeah.
I don't know if people listening, one of your home players is a childhood friend of mine from
George.
Yeah, so George is a dear friend of mine.
Yeah.
Who left and moved up to Virginia, and suddenly he happened to one day tell me he played at some guy Mike's house.
I know.
And I'm like, Mike who? Mike Shea? He goes, yeah. Oh. A small world, right?
Yeah.
So, but I'm trying to get my friends down here to play Shadow of the Demon Lord.
Yeah.
With me, and nobody wants to try it.
Yeah.
Right. And George is one of our friends here who we normally play with down here if he were here in Miami.
Yep.
So please get him to love it so he can
I will do my I mean, I don't even know if I love it yet, so we'll have to go there. But
I need you to please get him to love this game because I love the game.
So one thing I did, I don't know if this helps you, but there was a sale on the whole thing, and you could buy the they're called Victims of the Demon Lord. It's like the abbreviated rule set for level 0 characters. And it was like 80 cents. And I bought like 10 copies of it so that I could just mail it to all my players and be like, here's all the rules of how it works, and here's the theme of the game, and that way they could sort of absorb all of that before we sat down. But yeah, I have no idea. Did you run it before?
I have run it. Yeah.
Okay.
I love it. I love it.
So you should be the ambassador. Like, what the hell do I know? I just read it.
Yeah, but the thing is that when you have a bunch of 45-year-old guys that only know one rule, and it's called D&D, and that's all they ever wanted to play, it's hard to get people.
No, I'm with you. And I feel the way too. Like, I like D&D too. Like, I don't want to step away. Did you read? I don't know if you backed his Kickstarter, Rob Schwab's.
Spells, the new one.
Yeah, but he just put out an adventure today called it's called Good Country Folk or something like that.
No.
Did you ever see the X-Files episode called Home about the inbred family with mom that they left under the bed? It got banned from Fox after its first viewing.
No.
Yeah, so it's basically that episode in an adventure. And I'm like, wow, this is her. I could never run this adventure. Like, it's the most horrifying adventure I ever read.
I'm really amazed at how much content he has put out for that game.
It's incredible.
The guy is a machine.
Yeah, and the value, like backing his Kickstarter.
Yeah, I don't get it.
The value
he's amazing. The game is super fun. The game, it plays.
I'm looking forward. Cool. Yeah, I love the idea of boons and banes.
The initiative system in that game to me is fantastic.
Yeah,
it's a great game.
But yeah, I'll let you know. I'm running it on. I have to come up with an adventure. I got to figure out what the hell I'm going to run next Wednesday.
No, but listen, run the 1 through 10 campaign. It's meant to be played in 10 sessions.
It is. I read it, but it's got a handful of adventures that I didn't really dig. It's got a handful that didn't really follow the storyline.
So he has another one, like a pirate.
Yeah, and James Intercastle ran that one. He liked it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, or he played in it. I think, a friend of his, Vegas, played it. The Freeport one, yeah. Hey, dude, I got to run.
All right.
Awesome talking to you.
Mike.
We got to do this again.
We got to do this again. It's always fun to talk to you.
Yep. And we will maybe we'll catch up and see how we did on Dragon Heist.
Perhaps. I need to figure out this OBS stuff on Mac so I could host these streams every now and then.
Very good. All right. I will talk to you later, my friend.
Well, I'll see you later, and thank you again for hosting, and it's been great. And thank you to everybody in the chat.
Yeah, thank you everybody in chat.
Everybody have a nice night.
Everybody have a good night.